With that in mind, the Spartan decided to remove his helmet once more. The seals of the helmet moved away automatically with a snap and hiss to release the atmosphere in the helmet, and soon his face was revealed. Naturally, the Spartan didn't like to reveal his face all the time since he found it to be a bit disconcerting and difficult to be out of even a single piece of his Mjolnir armor, but if it was going to help, then so be it. Of course, the Spartan had no idea just how his appearance can affect the opposite sex when he revealed himself. Kaylin looked at the Spartan's exposed features once more, silently taking in the features she had seen previously back in Darnassus when he had been there under the invitation of the High Priestess. The Night Elf Sentinel had tried to deny it, but she had developed a desire to see the Spartan's features once more, and now she was getting the chance. Even after seeing just how deadly he could in 2 different occasions before, she began to develop a sense of respect for him due to what he had accomplished and what he had done as well. Sandra had to admit that she was starting to like seeing the Spartan's appearance, as for a human he was rather handsome to say the very least. She had seen humans before and found a number of them to be attractive in many ways. The Spartan, however, was handsome in a way that was very interesting and had an allure of danger as well. After seeing him fight, she had feeling that there was soon going to be more to come, and she was interested to see just what else this human was capable of doing in combat. Jaina herself was surprised. There was no doubt that the human before her was rather handsome, but the eyes were very interesting. They were brown yet glowed with an inner fire that had nothing to do with magic in any sense. There was something else there in his eyes that was also very interesting. They seemed to radiate a very powerful sense of calm, a calm that seemed to be quite hard to ignore since it spoke of a person with a lot of experience. Edwin thought in the same as Jaina did. She could see that despite the youthful appearance of the Spartan, his eyes told her that he had seen many things in the years that he had been alive. This got the interest of the former guardian as she looked at the Spartan as he looked at each of them slowly. Horizontal ellipsis. As for John, he was not showing it, but he was getting a bit annoyed that people would look at him like that most of the time. Many female UNSC Marines used to joke at him when he would look at them, and while none of the people were speaking to him as of yet, he felt like he was being studied. However, he maintained his professionalism until Jaina spoke. "I'm sorry about that. Do you mind if we all could sit down?" "Of course, though I prefer to stand." "Why? My armor happens to weigh half a ton, so it would not be wise for me to sit down on an ordinary chair." With that, the Spartan began to tell the tale and planned to reveal the images as soon as Cortana was ready with the information, while those in the room sat down to listen to the story he was about to tell them. Horizontal ellipsis. Unknown to everyone. Aaron Firestar looked on at the now exposed Spartan's features and couldn't help but be impressed by what she was seeing. The Blood Elf rogue had been sent there from Quel'Thalas to keep an eye on the things happening on Theramore Isle to help determine the current situation of both the Alliance and their new allies that were there in Kalimdor, who were naturally the Horde forces who resided in the continent by the High Council back in their rebuilding capital. She personally had no interest in such things, as she recalled just what the Horde forces had done in the Second War. In fact, it was the orcs and their marauding allies, the trolls and the ogres, who had desecrated the land where several powerful runestones of her people were located. They corrupted it and used it for their own ends. And it was there that both her brothers and her father had died trying to defend them. She had at once served as a sorceress to the cause of fighting the Horde for many years after her mother died of a broken heart. But ever since the Alliance left them during the war with the Scourge and the Burning Legion, she had developed an intense dislike for the Alliance. She had dedicated her life to the cause put forward by Lothar and the survivors of Azeroth. But when her people needed help the most, with the Scourge, they were abandoned. Their prince never gave up on the Alliance, and neither did the others, but when that racist human marshal arrested them for their desperate alliance with the Naga and sentenced them to death, she broke all ties with them. She would have fallen to the magical addiction like the rest of her kin, but she resisted it and took up the profession of a rogue to be different from the others. Not only to be different and to resist the pull of magical addiction, but to honor her father and brothers. Her father had been a gifted archer despite his mastery of the arcane, and the same could said for her brothers, who had magical talent but chose to become swordsmen. Her mother bemoaned that but loved them nevertheless, and that was why she died of a broken heart when they were killed. And when the Sunwell was corrupted and lost due to the fallen Prince Arthas, she took this profession. And she had plenty of time to train long and hard to perfect her skills, though she never forgot the use of the arcane. When she was called for this duty, she was not happy but placed those thoughts aside as she knew the importance of such a mission. She had boarded a trading vessel belonging to one of her and had just left the ship without attracting attention when she spotted the massive flying machine that came into the area of Theramore. That had given her more than enough of a distraction to make her way out of the town and head off to see what was the situation with the rest of the Horde. But her curiosity was piqued as the machine was not made by the Alliance or the Horde. It was too advanced in appearance than anything either side could make. She managed to avoid the Theramore guards and spotted the massive human-sized being accompanied by a number of others, humans along with her former kin the Night Elves, a few half-elves, and 3 Kaldori. She hissed a bit at that, though not loud enough to attract attention. She should have left, but her curiosity had been attracted and she had managed to hide near a window on the ledge to look in. And in that moment, she smiled at the sight of the Spartan with his helmet gone. For a human. As pale as he is. He certainly looks delicious. Right? Parenthesis. Aaron couldn't help but find the way the Spartan looked with his helmet removed to be rather exotic. He was not an elf and her senses told her that he had no magic, but that certainly didn't mean that he was not someone she could ignore. The only flaw she could see was the brown eyes, as they were not in a color she liked, like deep midnight black. She had a thing for obsidian jewelry after all. But his features were perfect, almost elf-like. In fact, if he had the same ears as she and her other kin did, he would have easily passed as one of them. She was still dressed in her dark black leather armor and carried her trademark scimitars as well as a number of other items such as potions, poisons, traps, throwing knives. The stock and trade of the rogue, though she does carry a number of other items that would help if she has to use her arcane skills. She thought of stealing a sample of the weapons this unique human carried, but decided against it as doing so was not going to be easy and there was a chance her stealth skills would fail. After all, she was near some very powerful people and she couldn't push her luck. For now she decided to leave and avoid company for now. As soon as she was out of this marshland, she would move to see just how the Night Elves operated in their own lands before making her way to the Horde lands. But before she leaves, she briefly looks at the Spartan and licked her lips gently. Horizontal ellipsis. Back in Darnassus. Tyrion sighed a bit to herself as she sat down and looked at the arriving delegates of the Alliance. For the humans of Stormwind, Ambassador Alexander Durnhelm in the colors of Stormwind was first, followed by the Dwarven Ambassador Terras Stonefist, his female gnomish counterpart, Yuan Gearhands, and emissary Valastra, the current Draenei ambassador to her people from the Exoter. As soon as the people were in their seats, she greeted them with a smile as she was in her usual spot. Greetings to you, I am happy that you have arrived as soon as you did. The others nodded and soon the long discussions began. However, just halfway to the discussion on the current events of Kalimdor, Alexander spoke out. By the way, Lady Tyrande, there is one matter that I have to bring to attention for the rest of my fellow ambassadors of the Alliance. Oh? Recently one of the 7th Legion's soldiers, David Thurston, who was here in your city on personal matters, had spotted a being who had come to the city under considerable guard. He told his superiors that the being was almost as tall as one of the men among your people and carried weapons that were guns yet unlike anything used by the Alliance, as well as wearing armor that is unlike anything found in the Alliance or the Horde. Tyrande felt her annoyance and surprise grow. She had hoped to keep the existence of the Spartan a secret until she was sure that she was able to tell the other leader of the Alliance of his presence, while making sure to do her best to keep the Alliance from trying anything on him and getting their hands on his world's technology due to his desire to remain neutral until he was rescued. She, however, managed to keep her composure for the time being and replied, I see, and what is it you want from me? Alexander smiled a bit and replied, I personally wish to meet this being. Is he here in Darnassus? It was not long before the other ambassadors began to ask questions, and soon Tyrande saw herself in a sea of questions that she knew was going to last for quite a while until she could provide more serious answers about the Spartans' existence. She knew that this was going to be a very interesting week.